civil asset forfeiture, a presumption that property or cash is guilty of being derived from or used in facilitating criminal activity. Criminal charges need not be preferred to conduct a seizure, and it is a citizen's burden to prove that his or her property is innocent. The initial intent of this civil asset forfeiture policy was to deprive drug kingpins of proceeds in conducting their business, their illicit business. And I personally have no problem with that. After spending so many years on drug task forces and commanding drug task forces, I have absolutely no problem with that if that's what we actually did. But soon we were taking cash and property with no convictions. In many cases, we never even preferred criminal charges on anyone. Soon we began, this is interesting, soon we began running financial background workups on people. We wanted to see how many cars they had, whether there were liens or not on this property. And that soon became the business of the day before we would decide what case to work. Because we wanted to make sure that whatever case we work produced something. We didn't want to lose money, and I'm just about done. So we seized cars, and again, no charges were preferred, and sometimes we would offer to sell these cars back to the owner when they came to us saying that they needed the car to travel back and forth to work. And again, no charges preferred. And we did this many times down on the Eastern Shore with some of the task forces that I commanded down there. And I have to say that I'm not proud of that when I reflect back on that work that we were doing down there. And again, when the process became very difficult at the state level or cumbersome, we'd go federal. The feds would get 80% of the proceeds. I'm sorry, the feds would get 20% of the proceeds. We would get 80%. And it was a much simpler process. So basically, our civil asset forfeiture law, it flies in the face of our Bill of Rights, the Fifth Amendment, due process, because what citizens have to go through in an attempt to get their property back is not due process. So again, I ask for a favorable report on this piece of legislation, SB 528.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, Senator Raskin has a quick question for you.
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Franklin, thank you much. Thank you for your testimony. One thing we didn't talk about is what happens to the money once it's seized. And I know that the practice is very diverse in jurisdiction, but a number of departments, I understand, have begun to build the expectation of this money into their budgets, and then sometimes it's used for Christmas parties and trips and stuff like that. I mean, do you have some sense of that?
Unfortunately, the dollars that come from this business, we do begin to rely on that. We do incorporate it into our budget. So it's really incentive policing, okay, policing for profit. And we have to, every year, go out and bring in a certain amount of money to meet our budgetary needs. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the things that we spend this money on is not really necessary. Don't get me wrong, some may be, but that should be paid for through the budget. We should find a way to pay for that through the budget so that our police officers and our agents aren't out there, as I said before, we're doing financial workups on people, okay, because we want to make sure that the effort we put into it produces, that we profit off of it, and that it doesn't cost us money if we could possibly do that. You know, and I'll be honest with you, even to the point of us working undercover, you know, a lot of these cars that we seize, we actually use to work our cases. It's assigned to a trooper or a police officer working on a task force. You know what? Sometimes we go looking for the next car that we want.